David Duke, top of the arc. Here's Pip, guarded by Gillespie. Steps back, spins, fires! Woo! Pip Gates!
They get another crack. They'll go to their senior. And he lays it in. Two big buckets by Alpha Diallo.
He crushed it. It's a grand slam.
Down by 3. 5 seconds. Reeves for the tie. He got it.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Dish Sports. I'm Ben Bellotti. Today on the podcast, it's an awesome episode. I'm joined by my buddy Matt Marasco over at Boston College, and we team up and interview Steve Perrault of the Section10 Podcast and Bleacher Report. This is an interview you don't want to miss, and I thank Steve so much for coming on, so let's get right down to it. All right, welcome back to Behind the Dish Sports. I'm Ben Bellotti. I'm here with my buddy Matt Marasco from Boston College, and we're joined by a very special guest today, Steve Perrault of the Section10 Podcast and Bleacher Report. A very special guest. Steve, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
So right off the bat, just to jump in, how did you get to where you are today? Obviously, you attended Endicott College and basically worked a bunch of different jobs, and now you're in New York City, personality on a Barstool podcast, which is huge, and also a content creator for Bleacher Report. So would you mind just kind of walking us through the progressions that your career's taken thus far?
Yeah, for sure. Everything kind of really got rolling at Endicott College. That was probably the first time that I realized that I want to get into like doing something like a show, some form of a sports show. I started a sports radio show there called EC Sports Nation because I was obsessed with the show Sports Nation on ESPN when Colin Cowherd was still on there. That was a while ago. But no, me and my roommate started that up, and Endicott really gave you the chance to become, I think, a professional before a lot more of all other colleges did because of the internships. You got to do 3 internships over the course of 4 years, and they were all required. I don't think a lot of colleges require them. They recommend them, but they don't require them. And so that really threw me right into the field when I was like 18 years old. Interning at WEEI, that was my first experience kind of in the sports industry. And then I was at Boston College actually my sophomore year, working in the athletic department there. And then junior year you have off, got to go to Madrid. That was a ton of fun. And then senior year was with Comcast Sportsnet, which I think they've changed their name, I think, every week. I think now they're NBC Sports. I have no idea, but it's like, I still call it CSN because that's what it was when I was there. But that was a really good experience for me. And it kind of seeing the behind the scenes stuff at these, whether it's a TV station, radio station, there is so much that goes into it. I feel like you just tune into these shows and you just assume it's a bunch of jabronis just kind of talking like, that was a terrible decision by Farrell. There's so much that goes into these productions. And that was really eye-opening to me because then I really realized that if I want to do this, I need to be 100%. You're not going to get into this field without literally dedicating your entire existence to it. And that was, I think, at CSN, that's when I realized that. I got the job at Nesson soon after as a production assistant. Got to work. I mean, I love so many people there. There's a lot of people there I hate, but there is a good amount of people that I really did enjoy working with. Jamie Erdahl, nicest person ever. Gary Streisky is such a bro, but he was awesome. Adam Pellerin, who's a big-time veteran, he's still there. I mean, he's an all-timer there at Nesson now. Tom Karen, Jim Rice, even he'd bring in donuts every Sunday. That was sick. So yeah, I mean, it's. I think Nesson really kind of groomed me for what this field is like, what it can be like, how bad it can be, I guess, for lack of a better term, how rough it can be, how you can be looked at as just a number. And that kind of motivated me to try to do my own thing. And then by doing that, reached out to Jared. Getting in touch with Jared was not easy. I thought his DMs would be open. It was surprisingly, they were not. And so I reached out to him via LinkedIn, which is like, I've never messaged anyone on LinkedIn ever. And I was like, I heard their intro when they had Gary on as the first guest, Gary Streisky. And I hear the intro, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Fenway Park. I'm like, they got the damn PA guy? Like, I was stunned because it was episode 10. And with podcasts, like, you don't just get the PA guy to do your intro by episode 10. And I immediately was like, I need to be a part of this. I don't care if I'm producer. I don't care if I'm the coffee guy. Like, I need to be a part of this show. And reaching out to Jared, he gets back to me. The Endicott connection helped. Jared went to Endicott, even though he did night classes, which doesn't really count. Pete Blackburn actually lived on campus. Pete and I were actually, fun fact, we were the only students on campus that had sports radio shows. He had a hockey show. And so we knew of each other from there. We had a couple classes together. And so, yeah, that made it kind of comfortable from the jump. I was the producer when I started and then kind of ran with it and became the number 2 behind Jared on the show. And we've been doing, that was episode 11. So it's been over 300 episodes since. It's been pretty nuts.
Yeah, and let me just say, we're both huge fans of the show, and we love what you guys are doing. And it's grown so much, and it's so impressive how, we weren't there from the beginning, but at least there for over 150 episodes, maybe. Just from there to now, how much it's grown, and how you're able to go into the Red Sox dugout now and get guys like JD Martinez. Or even the interview you just did with the photographer. That was amazing, and content that really no one else is getting. So I applaud you guys for that. It's awesome content. And as listeners, I know we love it and appreciate it a ton.
For sure. And you're wearing the greatest shirt ever. The what up, that's, dude,
yeah,
I'm telling
right.
you, that's kind of when I realized, like, when we started making merch, I was like, oh, damn, we got something. Because, like, to me, especially with Barstool, until you have merch, I don't think you're much of anything for a podcast.
Not a real podcast until you got merch.
Yeah, you're like a fake one. And so I remember in the 2017 ALDS Astros Sox, and somebody sent us a picture of the jumbotron. Someone got on the big screen with a Section 10 shirt on, and I was like, "Oh, mama, we made it!" I was like, "We made it!" I was so happy. I felt like a proud mother. But yeah, until then, I didn't really feel like the show had made like a huge dent. But once you start selling merch, that's when you start realizing, oh, okay, we have a thing.
So just going off of that, let me ask you, do you have a favorite t-shirt or something like that you've came up with yourself for the podcast?
Yeah, a lot of them, Jared talks with whoever's in charge of merch and gets some stuff done. The Jumbo Dong one, Jared does most of them, or comes up with most of the ideas. I don't really get too involved with the shirts, but I was like, I need my phrase on a shirt. I need what up Section 10 in the building on a shirt. That just had to happen. And so I work with our guy Trig, who does a ton of the animations and covers for PMT, for Pardon My Take. Mm-hmm. And he's been so helpful with our show. Anything I ask of, any requests I have him, he's like, I got you. And so I hit him up and I was like, all right, first off, I need an all black shirt because it just makes you look thinner, which is great. So I was like, I need an all black shirt. I needed to say like, what up on the top. And then I'm thinking like Section 10 in the building is on the green monster. And literally the best part about Trig is everything you're thinking, if you can pitch it correctly, he has it. And like, he sent me the draft for it. I was like, yes, that is the shirt right there. So there's a lot of people that you'll send ideas to, and not necessarily shirts, but like you'll send, a pitch. And even at Bleacher Report, a lot of stuff I do with like AMAs now, you'll send someone a pitch and it's like, nah, it's not. They'll reply and you're like, that's not really what I was thinking. But Trig is so on top of all of the shirts and all of the merch and all of just the creative. I think he's one of the most creative people I've ever met. And so he's been a big part of the merch. And that's my shirt. That's my go-to shirt right there. I wore it all season. I mean, obviously you have to rep your own stuff. Like you got to rep, like if you have a phrase, you got to rep that shirt. So, but I literally wear the same thing. Like that's one thing that I wanted to, mix up this year at Fenway, not wear the same exact outfit every single time. With the Boston Nike hat, which I might as well sleep in this thing. And then the Section 10 of the building shirt. But yeah, I do enjoy that for sure.
Awesome.
So speaking of stuff that wearing the same outfit to the games, one of my favorite accounts of yours is the ballpark kicks, and love seeing the posts. How did you first get into sneakers, and can you talk a little bit about transitioning kind of your love for sneakers, being a sneakerhead, into this ballpark kicks, which is something that nobody else really talks about?
Yeah, it was I just kind of felt like there was a void there because ever since I got to Bleacher Report, like I've loved sneakers my entire life. I've been obsessed with kicks. Shout out to my mom because she was paying for them up until I was like 18. But that was like her least favorite thing is when I'd be like, we got to go sneaker shop, and like, Mom, it's happening today. She's like, whatever. That's the thing as a kid, when you just bug your parents enough to like, a lot of times they're just like, whatever, just shut up, we'll do it. So we would go shopping for sneakers. I was the worst kid on the planet to go sneaker shopping with because it's like, a lot of times you get one pair for like the school year, maybe two. That was kind of the rule. And if I'm rocking one pair of kicks or like two pairs of kicks all school year, I need to nail it with those. If you get bad kicks, you're screwed. Not only are the kids in class can be like, what, those things are whack. You need to be repping them with stuff that you would normally wear. It needs to kind of match. And so I was always really concerned about it. And I'd be in Foot Locker for like 2 hours trying to come up with the right, pick the right sneakers. But that thing kind of graduated my love of kicks over the years. Jordans were always something I wanted to have, but I just didn't have enough money for. And, finally kind of getting in the industry and I waste money as it is way too much on sneakers. I spend way too much on sneakers, but I'm finally at a point where I can feel like I can, comfortably buy Jordans. And so that was really something that kind of pulled me into the sneaker industry more. And I don't know, it's a way to express yourself. I always just love, like, if I see someone else wearing black cement threes, I'm like, I mess with that guy. Like, that's my guy. I don't know anything about him. He's probably like Joey Dickhead, but like, that's my guy because he's wearing black cement threes. And I saw there wasn't really bringing it back to the Bleacher Report thing. Sneakers are so competitive at Bleacher. Like, what you're wearing on your feet matters way more than like a hoodie or anything else you're wearing. Like, the sneaker culture at BR is intense. And it's something that I never really understood until I got here 4.5 years ago in New York. And so that kind of grew my love even more for sneakers. And then I realized I always wear different kicks to the games. Why not start posting these? Because I always see other people talk, like, oh, what are those? Like, in a good way, because I hated that phrase, what are those? Like, oh, such a dumb phrase. But in a good way, what are those? And
yeah.
And I people started posting with the hashtag ballpark kicks. And I was like, yeah, we might as well make that a thing. So I should have started the Instagram handle earlier because it's starting it in a season where there might not be a season is a little bit weird. But we're up to 1,000. We're over 1,000 followers, so we're trying to grow it day by day.
Yeah, those Section 10 sneakers really helped you guys out for that first day.
Oh yeah, needed that big time. Those are fresh. I mean, the thing with certain Nike Blazers really mess with your ankles because it really like kind of rubs up against the back of the ankle. So those can be a little stiff at times. You got to loosen them up, but they do represent Section 10 well.
Yeah. So let me just ask, with being connected with like the Instagram and all that, how was it transitioning from like the behind the scenes guy at all the companies you were at, like Ness and everything, and then the producer, not even like really in the content for Section 10. Then now you're obviously the number 2 is Section 10. You're doing AMAs with Bleacher Report. Literally, like Section 10 has kind of become almost like just as big or basically a huge percentage of Red Sox Nation. So how is it like transition from behind the scenes now to going down the street of Boston, people knowing who you are and like repping your merch and everything like that?
That, I think the first time I saw someone in the Section 10 of the building shirt, I was like, whoa, it's like a human spent currency on that shirt. Like, that's huge. So I don't know what it was about that, but that kind of really was eye-opening. But I don't know, the transition felt normal because I knew I could do this stuff. I think like certain people always kind of want to do it and they're like, oh, it'd be cool if I had a show or if I did this, I did that. But they're not willing to literally dedicate their entire life to it. Like, there's never a time that I'm off. Like, you need to be on at all times. When I was in vacation with my family last year in Los Angeles. That's when we did the Suns Out, Guns Out show. And that's one of our most downloaded shows. Didn't talk about the Red Sox once. And that entire week, my parents were like, well, we want to go here, we want to go there. I'm like, I need to do these promos about the damn Phoenix Suns. I can't go out tonight. And telling them that it did not compute and it shouldn't have computed, because that's one of the dumbest excuses for not going out on vacation is that you're doing a Steve Nash promo. So that's the kind of thing, though. You need to be plugged in. You can't be I don't consider myself tuned out at any point. And I knew that I kind of had the voice for it and kind of had the flow for it. And it helps getting the reps at Endicott, doing a radio show there. But yeah, you just got to be dedicated, because any success that we've had, I always feel like we're ready for it and we're ready for more. Like, I'm always kind of trying to do the next thing, try to figure out what the next interview we can get is. Like, the Billy Weiss interview was a ton of fun. And I feel like those are stories that hadn't really been heard before, because he's a guy that almost, not that he's an afterthought. I personally love Billy. And I think he should be somebody that gets way more attention in Red Sox Nation. This guy has captured some of the best shots in the history of the team. And a lot of people do know who he is, but I feel like he deserves more of like a kind of frontline acknowledgement. So those are the interviews I love doing. And just kind of answer your question. I think it's awesome to get acknowledged and all that stuff. And it's a lot of fun to do this, but like we've definitely like earned it. Like we've put the hours in. So it's good to know that pays off, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. What has been your favorite
So
interview? Oh, sorry, Matt. It's a little bad connection here.
no, it's all good. I was gonna ask the exact same question. You mentioned the Billy Weiss interview. You've done a ton of interviews, both for Section 10 as well as now the AMAs for Bleacher Report. Whether it's Section 10, AMAs, whatever, who's been your favorite interview? And is there any interview that you've had that, you weren't really expecting it? Not to say you weren't expecting a ton going, but the person surprised you and you're like, wow, this turned out much better than I expected.
The one that's most memorable for me has to be JD Martinez in the dugout before the playoffs. I mean, that checks so many boxes. You have a superstar athlete. He's a guy that follows our stuff, which I actually take a lot of pride in, that JD follows the Instagram account, Twitter, and he is engaged, with some of the stuff that we post. That's really cool. But it's got to be that one. It just it was an hour. He gave us an hour the day before, and all these other. It's funny because one thing you always feel the edge from the real media, because I consider ourselves a gap between media and fan. And anytime media sees that we're getting an hour with JD Martinez the day before the playoffs, they're like, "What is this? This is garbage. You guys should not." It's an old timey thing where it's we've been there, done that. It's I hate to say it, but what we're talking about is more what people want to hear about, instead of you sticking a mic in their face and being like, "Yankees, huh? Rivalry, right? Right?" And it's sick. That quote's going to be awesome. Yeah, rivalry. Yeah. It just, that sucks. So we're trying to make it as comfortable as possible. I try to do that. I've transitioned that into the AMAs that BR has me doing now. I try to create this as comfortable an environment as you can have, and you get the best stuff that way. And JD was awesome. He was just on point. You could tell he was in the zone. He had just had a great BP. He was ready to go, and he gave us an hour. Remember, Mookie came in during the interview, and we were like, "Oh, this would be awesome if we get Mookie and JD at the same time." And he was like, "No, I'm not doing it." But he was kind of he was bugging JD because they had a dinner reservation. He's like, "Come on, hun, we gotta go." But no, that was really cool. To your point, one that kind of surprised me. I'm trying to think of one that kind of surprised me. Brian Johnson was really good a couple weeks ago, because he's kind of a self-proclaimed kind of a quiet guy. He just kind of goes about his business. So he was really good. Joe Kelly. I mean, I just got to go back to the Joe Kelly one because it's the most downloaded episode we've ever had. And it was the first time it was the day before his first series back in New York after the brawl with the Yankees. And the dude comes in, he's wearing glasses. I'm pretty sure he was high as a kite, and which is fine. And he gave us some quotes that were just all time. I still can't believe, it's the kind of stuff where I'm like, just so you know, I do edit these after, I can take that out if you want me to take it out. And he's like, no, leave that in there. And the line, so we asked him, what was it like? What was that split second when Tyler Roston slammed his bat and was about to come out? And he was like, I don't know what it is, man. I get the white shark eyes that go down, and I just feel like a serial killer. I'm like, what? You're just telling us you feel like a serial killer out in the, what are you talking about? But immediately when I heard that, and this is kind of transitioned into day-to-day life now, I think in quote cards. I'm always thinking oh, that's a great quote card. Oh, that's a great quote card. And my roommates will be, be watching a show and they'll say something. I'm like, that's a great quote card. It's dude, who cares if it's a great quote card? But no, second Joe Kelly said that, I was like, that is gold. And that is by far the most engaged quote card we've ever had. It's by far the most downloaded episode we've ever had. So I guess in that degree, I knew that show was going to be a big deal. I did not know we were going to get those quotes out of Joe Kelly. So that would probably be the most surprising, is that is still to this day, 2 years later, the most downloaded show we've ever had.
Yeah. How was it being in Brock Holt's house?
That was awesome.
For that interview.
Yeah, Brock Holt's the best. Brock Holt is I'm so sad he's gone. Maybe he comes back. You never know. I mean, there's just so much on the table right now with the baseball season. But yeah, Brock Holt's one of my favorite people. He is just a genuine dude. I'm not, without naming any names, there are some players that just kind of want nothing to do with the podcast, and it's fine. It's all good. I don't hold anything against people. Sometimes people hear Barstool and they get kind of this weird vibe. A lot of times I presume it's from the missus. It's probably coming from the fiance or the wife. They're gross. So I kind of presume that's what it is. But because even my mom, she hates that I have an affiliation with Barstool, but my mom's a principal at an all-girls Catholic school. So what do you expect there? But no, Brock is the best. He is a genuine dude. And when he agreed to that podcast, we were like, dude, we can do it over a hangout or a Zoom or whatever. And he was like, no, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he had already been on the show, but that one was via a Google Hangout. And I think he grew a respect for us over the years because we post a lot of Brock stuff, a lot of Griff stuff, a lot of Griff Holt stuff. And I think he realized, oh, these are real dudes. Like, they're not trying to like get any of the players in tough situations. So he respected us, and yeah, I miss Brock. Brock's the best.
For sure, he definitely is.
Yeah, that was an awesome interview. I remember just kind of watching the clips and stuff, and Benny and I were actually texting each other back and forth trying to figure out who the interview was with. I saw the World Series blanket. I thought you guys were at Tech's house, and yeah, that was awesome.
We were trying to do the whole tease thing. Like that is one thing that you can almost get too invested in, the whole like, oh, this interview's come. I try not to do too much of that, but like at Brock Holt's house, I'm like, this is a good one let's do the tease stuff.
Yeah,
definitely, and it definitely worked.
Yeah.
So kind of staying along on the topic of interviews and some of the interviews that you've done, is two guys that are trying to get into the business, Benny and myself. What is kind of your process when, one, looking for people to interview, right? Not a lot of people, like you mentioned, not a lot of people are thinking to interview Billy Weiss. So what do you kind of look for in people that you want to interview? And two, how do you go about your research and your prep work for the interview?
Yeah, it's a good question. The process a lot of times goes through Kevin Gregg, who is the media relations, like the head of media relations with the Red Sox. So a lot of times we need approval from him before we go about getting a player, or even someone like Billy who's affiliated with the team. So that's kind of step one. Outside of that, tomorrow we have an interview with Daniel Nava, so that'll be cool. I mean, a lot of that stuff is from the DMs. It's from Jared has all sorts of contacts. So, maybe he's texting so-and-so being like, hey, you want to come on? But yeah, I don't think it's anything too out of the norm. A lot of it's just social media based, and they recognize us, we recognize them, and then just kind of connect and make it work and find a day that works. Obviously it's a little easier now with the quarantine and everyone being at home, but yeah, I think that's probably the main thing. But approach wise for these interviews, it's like, I know now, and it took me a couple years, because when we started it was 2015, but I know now that I can very easily conduct all these interviews myself. And it's a big deal to know that, because there's a huge difference between doing an interview by yourself and doing it with a group of people that all have these planned questions. Jared is good at it. I think it's probably one of his strong suits, is being able to kind of flow with an interview. He doesn't do nearly as much research as I do, because that's his style. He just doesn't. I think he just goes into it and kind of flows with it. And some of the best stuff you get is flowing with the answers. And I try to do that as well. But I also have a base of I normally have a page and a half of stuff that's kind of ready to go, just in case we go down certain avenues, certain paths with an interview. So I think just being ready for anything. And the most important thing I would recommend is being ready to improvise, because the second you start going through a whole planned list of questions and just sticking by that, you're limiting yourself to where that interview could go and the potential that interview could have. Because even with Billy, a lot of stuff was just kind of branches off of what he said. So I think that's probably my biggest advice from that perspective.
Yeah, it's awesome advice. It makes a lot of sense. So, one thing I know Matt and I talked about before, something we definitely wanted to ask you about, was we've heard you talk about your brother on Section 10 a couple times.
Jared hates when I talk about him.
Is he your older brother?
Right? Yeah, my older brother Dan. Yeah.
So how much of like him influenced you to kind of get down into the media side? Because he's a producer, kind of like with Netflix and a bunch of big shows like American Vandal and stuff like that. So did he have any influence on you in getting into what you are in now?
Yeah, the biggest influence my brother had on me is and this sounds so corny. This is the cheesy part of the episode here. It's just to be myself. It's to be myself. No, but like something, but Dan is, how old is he now? I'm 29. Dan's 33, and he still acts like he's 15 in a good way. Like he kept all the good stuff of being like a teenager and like a kid, and he transitioned it into this adult version of himself. And I love that, because like I have a Sandlot poster behind me, got my Jurassic Park hat and poster up here. Like I'm still a kid, but I happen to be pushing 30. That's just kind of how it goes. And Dan taught me, your age literally doesn't matter as long as you have this consistent, first off, work ethic's enormous. He would stay up until 4 a.m. working on the most useless stuff. He was a camp counselor at this school, this Derby school in Hingham in the South Shore where I grew up. And these kids are like 5, 6, 7 years old. He would stay up until 5 a.m. editing this video that they filmed of like one of the kids being Superman, or like some like behind the scenes thing where he's trying to like, solve a crime. And The kids stink at acting. They're 6 years old. So, but yet what I respect out of him the most is he would treat that just like he would treat editing a Netflix show. And that's the mindset you need to have. Like I'm going at this project the same way I would go at a project that I'm making thousands and thousands of dollars on. And I learned that from a young age from him. And I realized early on with the podcast, in theory, it could blow up. In theory, it could become a big deal. We could have live shows and get interviews, but that wasn't even a thought in 2015 until you put the work in. You had to put the work in, had to constantly be on, or else none of that would have happened. So I think that's my brother's biggest influence on me is the work ethic, and my parents as well. I got that from my parents as well. But Dan really showed me firsthand how hard it is to crack into any of this stuff and how much you have to work just to have a chance to make something work, how much work you have to put into it.
Yeah, and you mentioned, being yourself and, keeping kind of that little kid inside you. And I think that that's a huge reason why Section 10 has been so successful. I mean, it's like you said, it's like talking with other fans. It's people that, are like, not to say our age, but, people that are our age are really engaged with it. And it's like a conversation that we would be having. And that's definitely the appeal to it. It's not like a McNamara column or something like that, where it's somebody who's so removed that it's just bland and stuff. So I think that that's definitely important and a huge reason for kind of the appeal and why everybody who I talk to who listens to Section 10 loves it.
Yeah, I think sure. one of the biggest things we try to do is talk with the audience, not like at the audience. Like it's when it becomes like a group thing, when we start incorporating the phrases and people are wearing the Suns Out, Guns Out shirts, which I love, by the way. We sold out Suns. What's up?
Mine's in the wash right now. I was going to wear it for this, but it's not clean.
Dude, we sold out Suns merch. Like, what? Jared texted me that day. He's like, they already all sold out. I'm like, weren't there like thousands of shirts? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what the hell is going on? These are Suns shirts. It's a sun with guns holding guns. Like, what? So I was stunned that actually worked. And that actually but that's why, because you can tell that we care about the connection we have with the people that listen to the show. And there's a lot of people that have popular shows that just assume it's because, they're so good. It's like the reason people listen is because I'm so talented. It's like, shut up. Like, I'm sure that's probably the first thing that like Skip Bayless would tell you. It's because of me. That's what it's like. No. It's because of us. It's because of the group that we've created and just kind of the trust that we've created with the listeners. Like, you're going to get a show every week. Wish it was 2 at this point. Wish we were talking baseball, but whatever. And that we're going to be kind of vibing with the listeners. Now we have the Section 10 roundtable every Wednesday night, so that's awesome. It's just it's a community thing, and I take pride in the fact that we've created this cult almost, as weird as it sounds, because that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. But yeah, it's my favorite part about Section 10 is the people that are so dedicated that they sell out the Suns Out, Guns Out shirts. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you were saying earlier of how easy the transition was from, nothing to everyone knowing you. It makes sense because, like you're saying, it's literally just like we're having a conversation with the people who are listening. And it's like the reason why I can hang a Section 10 flag in my dorm and a dude I don't even know walks by and like either flashes me the Section 10 sign is like, oh, what up? So it makes perfect sense.
The Section 10 side is like, the second Jared implemented that, I'm like, there's going to be so much confusion. Like, I knew from the jump, I'm like, everyone's going to think everyone's getting flipped off. And it's such a Jared sign, by the way. Like, basically, any nickname he comes up with has to be dick related. Any, gesture has to be like, yeah, middle fingers, man. So that's one of the biggest differences between Jared and I. He's all like, yeah. And I'm just like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. All right. Jumbo dunk. But yeah, I think to your point, I love that. Like, if people are putting the flags up, especially college kids, because that's our target audience is probably, I'd say 18 to 24. That's where we need to dominate, and I think that's where our maturity level is anyway, even though we're older than that. So I think it does kind of mesh pretty well.
Yeah. I know you got to run pretty soon, so Matt, you got one last thing you want to talk about?
One last thing, I'm a huge Ted Williams guy. Any chance at all that Citrus Hills shirt comes back? Because I started listening after that shirt, and one of my buddies has it, and he wears it to all the games. Any chance at all that comes back?
Dude, I missed that shirt. I don't know if it was see, here's the deal. I don't know if it was a copyright. I don't know if it was an issue with whoever did the commercial. Because I have a feeling, I'd have to ask Jared, but I have a feeling that it got back to whoever did the commercial, and they were like, "Oh, we need to get a piece of this because you can't be profiting off of our thing." The Citrus Hill shirt is so like it just reminds me of how happy and fun 2018 was. Like everything was fun. There was not a single thing that I didn't like besides not getting a duck boat. There was not a single thing that I didn't like about 2018. And that shirt, because we just had a whole set, like the team was so good. We were like, "All right, let's just do a segment on the Citrus Hills commercial. And we got so animated about it. We were like, we should do shirts. Let's just do shirts. Why not? Let's do shirts. Those sold out immediately. And that's such a funny shirt because Ted Williams wanted nothing to do with that commercial. He wanted they probably paid him like whatever they paid him, and that was towards the end of his life. And he's like, "F the Citrus Hills, F whatever, F the I don't care. Like, get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore." There was like a plane flying over, and he got pissed off.
Yeah.
That was if you've never seen the Citrus Hills F this commercial. I mean, my
That's
goodness,
a great commercial.
it's a great watch. It's a great rewatch. I laugh at that every single time. So hopefully they are coming back. But the only reason they wouldn't is because of a copyright thing. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know you got places to be for everything. Very busy guy, a lot of content to create and everything. So first, I just want to say thank you. You were awesome. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for your time so much. We love Section 10, and we loved having you on.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate it. You guys are dedicated. There is nothing like that, in my opinion, people that are dedicated to the show that we do. So let's do a show when there's baseball. Let's do another one when we actually have some balls. So 2025, very excited. I'm very excited to run it back. But yeah, when there's actual games to talk about, let's run it back.
Awesome. Absolutely. We'd love to have you back.
All right, perfect. Take care, guys. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Steve. Thank you. That was our interview with Steve Perrault of the Section 10 Podcast and Bleacher Report. Steve was an awesome interview. I hope you all enjoyed. Once again, I want to say a big thank you to Steve for coming on. We truly appreciate it. He is a big inspiration to me and Matt, and it was an interview we've wanted to have for a long time. So thank you, Steve. It was truly awesome. In regards to the podcast, we have a ton of more content coming out, so be sure to stay tuned. This has been Behind the Dish Sports. I'm Ben Bellotti.